Everybody, welcome back to Wild Black. I am solo today. Art is out handling business. We miss him, but we couldn't wait for this episode. I heard our guest today telling her story, I think on TikTok. It was TikTok, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, on TikTok. I don't know, it's been months now. I remember somebody sending it to me and saying, "Hey, Darius, this is a story that you need to tell." And typically when I get those, it's not really a story I need to tell most of the time. It's a story that just appeals to that one person for personal reasons. And also, when I get something sent to me over social media, when it's long, I am typically out. Like, you got about 30 seconds to get to me. When I looked at your story, I don't know, 7 minutes, something to that effect. And again, I was sitting at the barbershop. I was watching my son get his cut, and I was up next. And I remember hitting play, and I didn't have my headphones. So I was trying to hold it up to my ear because the barbershop is loud. The TV's going, people are laughing, and I'm trying to listen because the person who sent it to me, I do trust them, but at the same time, you're like, this probably not going to be what I'm looking for. And within a matter of seconds, your story had grabbed me. And I remember thinking halfway through it, slow down on my son's head because I don't want to stop. I want to finish this before I go to the chair. Go to the chair doesn't sound like the right thing. Before I get up and go sit in the barber's chair. And sure enough, I got through it. And even after getting through it and before getting into the chair, I had already reached out to you. Like I went and found your page because it was a copy of a copy that I think it might have even been on Instagram by the time I saw it. But I backtracked my way to your page and I sent you a message before I ever got to the chair. I don't like saying to the chair, before I ever sat in the barber's chair. And I could not help but ask her to come on. And I think the real reason why is because we use the word stalking lightly, right? We played around with the idea of stalking before this episode even started recording today. But when I heard her story, I was reminded of how dangerous stalking can actually be. And in her case, it was pretty dangerous. So I asked her to come on to share her story and so that we could have a really good conversation about it. And even in our pre-call, it was really, really good. Just hearing and learning, and honestly, in some cases, experiencing small elements of her story. And where I think we all can really understand and vibe with what she's saying is I do think there are elements to the story that are applicable to all, but maybe not the severity and maybe not the combination of all of these elements, because your story, and audience, I know you still don't know who we're talking to yet, but your story had my mouth wide open. And I don't want to say it's common, but I think it's probably more common than we realize. Because most people aren't going to open up and really share all that. Because at some point you feel just so utterly powerless.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't speak from the same level of experience that you, but I've had my own instances, much more slight, where I feel powerless to someone's actions in a world where you think you have control, in a world where power and control and barriers are told to you that you own your own. And when someone breaches those, it creates this very unsafe feeling. I'm going to shut up really quickly on this one because I want to introduce our guest and let her tell you her story in detail. And what I will say, for those of you all who are going through something similar, pay a lot of attention because she's got a pretty complete and complex story to share with you all. And hopefully as you listen and as I ask questions and as we discuss, you'll learn things that you need to better understand to help protect yourself and find your way out of the situation. And also, I want to ask for grace up front because I'm ignorant to a lot of these things. So if I say something that is offensive, and Dasia, I'm talking to you, if I say something that's offensive or ignorant, please forgive me. It's not my intention. Correct me, educate me, and help me be better at the same time. I'm going to ask questions that I think the audience wants to hear and questions that I want to understand myself. So with that, Dasia, welcome to Wild Black.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn the mic over to you and allow you to introduce yourself in whatever capacity you feel comfortable doing so. The floor
Yeah.
is yours.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. My name is Dasia. Thank you so much for having me. Um, I was really excited to come on here specifically because I felt like you would ask the important questions and it wouldn't be a situation where it was just like almost like we're getting off on someone else's trauma. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm allowed to say that, but I feel like
You can
it's
say what,
really
hey, open platform, say whatever it is you want to say.
yeah, it's really easy to kind of like turn it into like this thing that you hear and you share over a water cooler and
Yeah.
then you kind of let it go. So,
Yeah.
um
This is not television. This is
yes.
not a story that you're watching on any channel. This is real life. And
Yes.
and very quickly, and without your control, without your say so, it can become your life if someone else decides that.
Yes.
And that is such a scary point to me. Go ahead. I'm gonna shut up again. I ain't
Yes.
gonna shut up, but I'm gonna shut up again.
So yeah, I was very excited to come onto this show.
Right.
Um I don't know how to introduce myself. I'm so sorry.
I kind of feel like they got it. You are Deja,
Yeah.
who up until one day had not gone through something, and then one day someone decided
Yeah.
it was time.
Yeah. There's like a it's wild because I feel like my life is kind of broken up into like these sections of like before stalking and then after
Right.
stalking. Like I was a very different person. I moved very differently than I
Yeah.
do now as a
Yeah.
result of that. So
Yeah.
uh and I hadn't shared for a very long time about this, but I ended up losing my little brother
Oh, I'm sorry.
in April of this year.
Oh no, I lost my younger brother like
I'm
5
very
years
sorry. I'm
ago.
so sorry that you lost your brother.
Yeah, I'm sorry for you as well. It's painful.
It is. But it's like, well, that's like the worst thing outside of me losing my own life that could possibly happen to me.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't afraid anymore to talk about this. The thing that I was most afraid of
Yeah.
happened. So it's like, okay, like I can't allow this boogeyman to kind of like rest on my shoulder
Yeah.
anymore. Um, because I have a pretty large capacity community that follows me online. I love teaching people how to roller skate and just take better care of themselves. And so all of this time, I've built up this platform and I have all of these people who are listening to me and who tune into me.
Right.
And it's started to feel disingenuous
Mm.
because I'm like telling them like you just have to journal and you have to, exercise and get sunshine. And I'm leaving out this very real part of my life where I had to actually choose to live. I had to make the conscious
Mm.
decision to say, okay, it's I have to choose right now.
Right.
And that changes the way that you move. So I wanted to merge the two parts of me, you
Yeah.
know?
I do. I
I I,
get that.
I wanted them to come together and it not be like these two separate beings, but like kind of like this is also a part of you. I
Yeah.
didn't want to be uh like the girl who was stalked.
Yeah.
And so I went about making my platform. And, now it's, uh, you're teaching me roller skating and all this. And I feel now I can like marry those two parts of me. So that's why I'm here.
Well, I love it. I could not be happier that you are here. I hate that you had the experience that brought you here,
Yeah.
but given that you did have it, I am blessed that you chose to come share it here.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I want to start with this question before we even tell your entire story. If you can remember back to before you had ever gone through this,
Mhm.
what was your idea of what stalking was?
Um, like you're lingering on somebody's Facebook page a little bit too long,
Yeah,
or, you're getting details about somebody, or you're scrolling too far down in their feed and you accidentally like something from like 200 weeks ago and you're like, oh God, no, 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 no.
yeah,
Sort of like the very, I would say like typical surface level understanding of stalking.
yeah,
We joke about it. Oh, I was stalking his page. It's like, were you stalking his page? Did
yeah,
you just hang out a little bit too long? Maybe you should go outside. But yeah, so it was very innocent and unassuming and Yeah, just very, very naive.
Kind of like stalking without all the teeth.
Without all the teeth, and just, like, taking an interest. Taking an interest in someone is
Right.
not stalking,
Right.
okay? Let's, like, be very, very clear. Taking an interest in someone is not stalking, but there's a point that it goes past where it's like, "Okay, we're at the next level now."
The next level is not a place that I want to be.
I don't think it's a place anyone should aspire to go.
Right. Right. All right. So I'm sure that even though it's one listeners, I apologize. We're not going through our normal stuff today. As you can tell, we haven't done wild black shit. We're not doing the dope quote. And it's not for any reason other than I want to make all the space for Deja to tell her story and for us to have this conversation. Because even without the structure of an actual episode of Wild Black, I remember being on the phone during our pre-call for far longer than I am with most people, right? And I remember walking away from that call feeling relieved and heard and seen from you. But I also remember walking away feeling so scared in
Mhm.
places and so inquisitive in others. And by now, I would expect the listener has at least kind of settled down into the idea that this story of the stalking that you had to deal with is a bit more severe than the way we joke about it,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
The fact that we talk about internet stalking when in reality, you're gaining information on someone. But what you experience is far past
Oh, yeah.
gaining information,
Mhm.
right? All right, so let's dive in. Deja, tell us your story. And I'm
Okay.
going to ask some purposefully dumb questions along the way because I
Ask.
want to take those moments and drive complete clarity for our listening audience. So forgive me when I do that.
Yeah.
But let's have this story. Let's find out what happened to you.
Yeah, ask away, and if at any point in time anything is unclear, let me
Absolutely.
know. Um, so, let's see, I was 21. I
Hmm.
had just turned 21, and I had just moved to Las Vegas from California. I had gone through the phase of being like, "I need to break out of my small town," and I
Right.
felt like LA was too cliché, so I chose Las Vegas. And, I was there for about 6 months, kind of like just gaining my bearings, being a brand new 21-year-old to the city. And I actually don't remember how I met this person, which is crazy
Hmm.
because he ended up stalking me for about 10 months, 9, 10 months. And so I knew him as a person for maybe like 3 weeks.
Right.
So
3 weeks turned into 10
3
months.
weeks turned into 10 months. So, January of this year, so this was 2014, um, I had gone on a date with someone, well, with this person. And I wanna say I sold cars at the time, so I wanna say I met him at work, but I can't be sure. I know we didn't have dating apps at the time, so
Right. Right.
for those of you who are worried and being like, "Ooh, did this happen from a dating app?" I don't think
Right. It
that it
wasn't
did.
sight
No, no,
unseen. It
no.
wasn't, I don't know anything. You might not know everything, but you
No.
at least got a chance to hear and feel
Yeah.
the character that was coming off of him.
Yeah. I think it was actually I had a friend tell me about a concept called, a sweet meet, which is like, you actually meet somebody in person and it's sweet. So I think it might have been
Right.
a situation of sweet meet, but,
Okay.
so we ended up going on a date, and the first date was fine. First date was cool. Um, and then we went on a second date maybe like maybe like 2 weeks later. And after the second date, I decided that I wasn't gonna go ahead and, like,
Right.
continue seeing this person.
Right. So
And
two dates, and
2
for your
dates.
own reasons, you were like, you know
Mhm.
what? This isn't the relationship for me.
Yes. Um, which is, like, what dating is, you know?
Exactly. Exactly what it is. I'm going to spend time with you to determine how much time I actually want to spend with you.
Yes.
I choose none.
Yes. Do I wanna keep doing this or not?
Right.
Um,
Which is supposed to be your choice.
that's what dating is. And so after the second date, I let him know, like, "Hey, you know what? I actually have a lot of stuff going on." I was 21, just moved to Las Vegas, trying to get my footings. And, I was like, um, "I think I'm actually good." He's like, "Don't worry about it. I got all this stuff going on too. Um, don't even worry about it." But what had made me take that step in the first place was he would do this thing where if I didn't pick up my phone, he would have someone else call immediately after
Mm.
And I could like hear him in the background express frustration that I picked up that number and not his number. And so that was the first
Wow.
one that was like, ooh, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna bow out gracefully
We
from
talk about
this.
red flags today.
Yeah,
That was
that
your
was a
first
red flag.
flag.
That was a red flag for me.
Mm,
And I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and take a step back. And he was like, okay, cool, that's fine. And that was in January.
right.
So I'm gonna say it was like January, around January 20th, so the end of January. And I didn't hear anything from him for like a month. It was quiet. All things were fine. And then randomly in March, he was like, "You know what? I changed my mind. I actually deserve a chance. I'm a good man. I deserve a chance.
Deserve.
Deserve. I deserve a chance because I'm a good man. I'm well-traveled, I'm intelligent," named all these things. Um, and then shortly after that was like the first time he showed up outside of my house.
Mm.
And
So he already had
he oh,
this level of entitlement.
he already had the level of entitlement, and I had already kind of been feeling weird about the text messages that he had been sending up until that point in time, and they were things like pictures of the outside of my house, like, "Hey,
Okay,
come
so
outside." It escalated almost immediately from
wow.
not hearing anything at all to, and I quote, "You pissed in my Cheerios, and I changed my mind. I'm a good man. I deserve a chance." And it escalated almost immediately
Wow.
to him sending me pictures of the outside of my house. And the pictures were just innocent. It was just like a picture of my front door, which is like, it's scary in itself. And, looking back now, I'm like, oh, you're 21. You're just so like, ah, la, la, la. You're like blowing it off, like, whatever, this guy's tripping.
The father in me is reacting to someone doing that to my daughter.
Oh, goodness.
And for me, that is for me as like I'm 47. I'll be 48 in a few months. I've lived a lot of life, and when I think about someone feeling so much control over another person that I can go to your space, even if I don't come inside, and take a picture to let you know that I am
Oh,
there,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
scares the shit out of me.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
So 2 dates, stop, January,
Hmm.
no communication, and then in March he decides that you owe him another chance. And on top of that, I know where you live.
I know where you live.
I'm frustrated when you don't answer my calls.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so the very first time that he showed up outside of my house, I had a friend there and my friend like chased him out. And then after that, I feel like it escalated to the point of he felt like um he felt like I owed him because that person had chased him off. He's like, I could have
Mm,
lost my life that night. And it's like, you showed up at my house without
mm,
having any invitation whatsoever.
right,
And I look at it now like the 5 stages of grief.
right.
And I think the first stage is like denial. And I was very much in denial. I was like, this isn't happening. Like, there's no way this guy's like he's not stalking me. Um, and so I just kind of ignored him sending the pictures to my house. And then it started escalating to, you know what? I'm done talking about this. I'm just gonna plan a raid. I'm planning a raid on your house, and you're not gonna see me coming,
And
and
this is
don't
what
even
he's
worry
saying
about
to you
it.
at this
Yes.
point.
And so we're still like in March. We're like at the end of March, moving into April here. And it's just text messaging. And at this point, I'm still in denial. So I'm still responding, but not all the time. I'm just like, dude, stop. Like,
Right.
stop texting me. Stop doing this. Like, do you know that what you're doing is harassment? Like, I'm like trying to like I don't know, make sure he understands the severity of the situation, like, "I said no, and you're
Yeah.
continuing to do this."
I can only imagine that interacting with someone like this, you've got to be thinking, and let me know if I'm wrong, that this can't be real.
Yeah,
There must be some level of misunderstanding. Let me add clarity.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and you're trying to, like, over-explain and overanalyze and okay, maybe I was unclear and,
Mm,
maybe I gave mixed signals, and so you're trying to clarify just to be sure, and, it started when recognized, like, I was dealing with something a little bit different was when he would talk other people into things. Um, so by this time, I'm having like, dozens to hundreds of messages a day. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night to like 40 plus text messages. And sometimes it would just be completely random stuff. But then other times it would just be like an entire conversation with himself to me about why, like, he was a good candidate and, like, what our lives could be like if I gave him a chance. Um, and I remember this one instance of I get a phone call from someone and they're like, "Hey," because we lived in Vegas at this time. They're like, "Hey, I was down at the Strip and, I gave your boyfriend a ride up here, but we can't get inside the gate of your apartment." And I'm like,
I don't have a
"That is not
boyfriend.
my boyfriend." Like, that person is stalking me. And he had, like, tricked this person into being like, "Hey, you know what? I just need a ride to my girlfriend's house, da, 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 da." And this person drove them up there, and I felt so terrible because 'cause I'm, like, calling this person, I'm like, "This person is dangerous. Get out of the car." They're like, "I put him out of my car. I didn't know this. Like, should I call the police?" I'm like, "Yes. Like, this person convinced you that he was a nice guy." So that was, like, the first time I was like, "Oh, this is different. This is different." And he had friends that he would talk into coming to sit outside of my house. So the fact that he was able to, like, I don't know about you, but my friend wouldn't be able to talk me into going to sit outside of somebody's house.
Hmm.
I could say, like, 21-year-old me would be thinking different, but I really don't think so. There's no way I could justify, like, "Yeah, we're just gonna go sit outside of this girl's house." So, um, yeah, he was able to talk people into things. So that was, like, the first, like, "Ooh, all right, I'm gonna start making police reports because that's what they tell you. They tell you document everything,
Right.
make police reports."
Right.
And so I made my first police report, um, and I'd say within, like, maybe, like, 2 or 3 weeks, I was making more police reports, and it started to get really stressful between, like, me and my neighbors, and so I ended up having to move because the constant, like, calling the police to file police reports, um, him just, like, randomly showing up, sitting in the bushes, like, it was stressing my neighbors out.
So the neighbors saw what was
Yeah,
happening. They saw him. They, I'm assuming, saw the police coming.
multiple times, yeah.
And so that was the source of the stress. The fact that there was all this
Yeah,
stuff happening around them that's not normal operation.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
and, so my apartment was like, "Okay, well, like, you have to go." They said it nicely. They said
Right.
it nicely. They were like, "We'll let you out of your lease, but you have to go," which was, like, catastrophic.
Yes.
Catastrophic to me, but I felt I was like, "Okay, well, you know what? I'll have a new place so he won't know where
Where
I
I
live."
am. Yeah.
And, uh, so this is, like, end of April, we're approaching May.
So March, April. So in the span of 2 months, he's gone from texting to coming around to impacting your entire way of life.
Mhm.
And at a moment where I think the loving, caring, innocent side of me would love to believe that as opposed to shunning you, people would support, right?
Ooh, this was a different time.
Right. But I also understand
Yeah,
because I know where the story goes.
yeah,
So I also understand the fear that
yeah,
everyone around you also has to be going through,
yeah,
all because of this guy's decisions.
yeah.
Okay, let me
Um,
be quiet again. I'm sorry.
no, no,
Listeners, I'm sorry.
um, so we're at the point where, okay, I'm gonna have to move, but it's like, okay. By now I'm like 3 or 4 police reports deep. And it had gotten to the point where he would watch me file police reports and he would send pictures of me afterwards and be like, "Oh, well, all the police would have had to do was look up and they would have seen me." Um,
Haunting you.
oh, from immediately from the jump. I had started sleeping in my closet at this time
Wow.
because I was so afraid. He was like, "I'm gonna plan a raid." And
Those were his words. I'm going to plan a
oh
raid.
yeah, I'm gonna plan a raid. And like I remember just thinking like, well, if he comes, then like I could be in the closet. So I'm just like sleeping on the closet floor with my cat,
Mm,
afraid that this person's gonna like come in at any point in time.
mm. Can I
And
stop and ask some dumb questions real
yeah,
quick? By no means do I want this to be offensive. I'm asking these for clarity because I know there's probably someone out there who's wondering.
yeah.
On those 2 dates, did you promise him sex?
No.
Did you flirt with him in any capacity that could allow anyone to look at him and be like, well,
You
she
know
deserved
what?
that, right? Is there anything like that?
You know what? And looking back now, I did not pay attention to this,
Mm,
but he was so familiar.
mm,
Like, I remember on the second date, he was like, "Well, let's take a picture today, to take pictures together."
yeah,
And I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything of it at all. I'm like, "Oh yeah, we'll take our little
right.
selfie together
Which everyone really, I mean, it happens all the time.
all the time."
Yeah.
Well, in the midst of him stalking me, he took that picture and made it like his profile picture. And so, like, he had families and friends commenting on, like, his new girlfriend.
Wow.
So, I didn't even think anything of it. It's crazy because I feel like I, like, my naivety made me, like, a perfect mark. Uh, I didn't know at the time that he had done this to another woman. So, I, like, stepped right into it, you know?
Wow.
I wasn't even thinking about it. So, I guess, like, you could take that, but something that had haunted me the entire time because it was like, was I too interested? You know,
Right.
did I lean forward too much? Um, you know, did I ask too many questions? Did I listen too hard? Like,
Which are all things you should not have to be concerned about,
I mean,
especially when you tell someone, "I'm not interested." And listeners, I wanna be clear. I asked that question so you could hear that answer, but I also wanna be very, very clear. My perspective and my stance is that even if she had offered him sex, even if she had flirted with him so hard that it confused him, which none of the above happened, even if that had happened, the moment that she decides, "I'm no longer interested," it should be a wrap.
it should be.
I mean, that's the world I like to believe that we lived in,
It should be,
but
especially
evidence
when,
says that's not true.
yeah, it should be, especially when that person is also like, yeah, yeah, no, that's cool. I got my own stuff
Exactly.
going on too. Yeah, it's no worries. So that's what it was like. It was like a whiplash because it was like we were good. What happened? Like the 30 days passed
Right.
and there was nothing.
Mm.
And then all of a sudden it was you pissed in my Cheerios. So by this point, we're at the end of we're April, May. I've tried to file a restraining order. And the funny thing about restraining orders that no one tells you is they have to, at least at this point in time, hopefully things have changed. They have to serve the person. And so there were a couple things working against me here. Because we went on dates, 2 dates, they classified it as domestic,
Mm.
which means that they put me in family court. And this is not a justification or
Wow.
anything like that, but the way that they treated me in family court, I'm like, I'm sitting next to women who are getting restraining orders against, you know, men that they've been married to, that they have kids with. And we are not the same.
Mm.
Not saying that
Right,
you're
understandable,
deserving of
yeah.
anything that is happening to you. It's terrible, but I don't think people are understanding the gravity of the situation. I mean, that's a huge gravity of that situation.
Right,
You
right.
know,
Not knocking it, but that
most
was not your situation.
yeah, most instances of like femicide are by a partner. So it's like very gravity situation. But
Right.
I don't think people were paying attention to the fact that I don't know this man. And
Mm,
this is the amount of like effort that is being applied towards tormenting my life, which
mm,
I feel like it's it's like a terrible mark on our society that we would dismiss somebody who's in a relationship with somebody and say, oh, well, you know, she'll go back and treat them that way. And I think it's also a very frightening thing that a complete stranger could do this to somebody. And I think those things should be treated accordingly. And so by going to family court, I was kind of like dismissed.
mm,
And it was like, oh, well, you know, you're having a fight with your boyfriend or you're not that's how they treated me. Like, you're not getting along with your boyfriend right now and you want to ruin his life.
right.
Uh, which is wild. So had to go to family court, which changed the process a little bit. And they have to serve the person and
Physically
they have to
serve them,
physically serve
right.
them. And because I didn't know him,
Or where he lived, you can't catch
I
him.
didn't know anything. I only had a name, and so they had a name, and I guess that he had been in the system for something else. So they were like, okay, well, we'll serve him. And so he sent me a picture of the note that the process server had left on their door, and it was like, you know, call the sheriff's office. Da, 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 da. And he knew immediately. He took a picture of that and sent it to me, and was like, "What you're trying to do is stupid. A restraining order is just a piece of paper." And it was like,
Mm.
This is insane because you're doing all the things that they tell you to do.
These
You're
things should protect you.
Oh, yeah, you're documenting, and I had been so stressed out at that point that I remember printing out all of, like, the text messages, the phone calls, the emails, um, on, like, blowing them up on big pieces of paper and, like, walked in there with a stack this thick and was like, "Look at this man is threatening to kill me. He's telling me he's gonna kill me. He's gonna get away with it. That's what's happening. We're escalating to, you know what? What if I killed you?" Like that's what we've escalated to in the span of 2 months, 3 months.
So he's literally talking
Oh yeah.
about your murder
Oh
in
yeah.
these text
Oh
messages
yeah.
now.
So when we're thinking about the stages of grief, we have denial and then we have anger. And so I'm in the anger part now because I'm like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like,
Right.
what are you talking about? So now I'm like, I'm talking back. I'm not like snapping back, but I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not insulting because that's the last thing that I wanted to do
Right. You
was
don't want to
like,
set him off
I don't want to set him
anymore.
off, but I am like, this is bullshit. Like, stop doing this. And then uh I was like, oh, well, I'm moving. Once I got the picture about the restraining order being just a piece of paper, and for there was some reason, some way he found out about me having to move. I think I actually had like it was like a move out notice, like an eviction notice. And he had caught wind of that on the door. And so his efforts had like ramped up. He was like, well, I only have a couple days till you move. So I need to make good on my plan. So he had like known that I was moving because of this note. And it's like a crazy conversation about like the little things that we do as a society that give out very important information that people could use to hurt you. You wouldn't
Yeah.
think that putting a notice about somebody having their like move out date on their front door could be used manipulatively, but that's exactly what he did. He was like, "Oh, well, I saw this notice and I've got a couple days to make good on my plan before I have to pay somebody to find you, and I don't want to do that." Like,
It's wild that again, the I don't even know what the word, the naive
mm,
aspects of me want to believe, okay, great. Now you've got evidence, you've got text messages, you've got pictures. Of course, we're going to the police. You're going to block his number, and they're going to shut this down,
oh yeah,
right? That's what the naive
oh,
aspects of me want to believe,
want to believe it.
but that is not true.
You want to believe it, and when you walk into a police station and you're sitting down in the lobby with your stacks of paper, and you're waiting for the people who have been like pumped as like the heroes of our nation
Right.
to come and save you. And you know, you sit at a counter and they take note of what you're saying and da da da. Da. And they give you a copy and they send you on your way. And you're just like,
Going to happen.
okay, what next? They're like, well, we can't do anything about it because he hasn't hurt you yet. As if stalking wasn't illegal already. He hasn't hurt you yet. Okay.
That's what they told you.
Mhm. There's
That's
nothing we
wild. So
can do.
you have to receive physical harm in order for the police to provide protection.
Mhm. Which
I mean, I guess the odd thing is at that point, doesn't feel like protection.
oh, not only that, but it just sets a precedent that it's like emotional harm doesn't matter, mental harm doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like it was anguish at this point. Like it had gotten to the point where I had started like being afraid to leave my
Right.
house. So now I'm like I'm isolating. Um and the final night that I had to like leave my apartment, I remember not even having a place to stay in between like the gap and like having to sleep in my U-Haul. So until I could move into my new place. And it was like, okay, well, you know what? The police aren't going to help me, but at least I'm moving. It's okay. The police aren't helping me, but at least I'm moving. And by that point, I had already filed like 4 or 5 police reports
Right.
and I had restraining order attempts. Um,
But also he knows you're moving now. So that means he's already proven that he's watching your place.
mhm,
So now it becomes very easy to follow you all, go to the post
yeah,
office, continue trying
yeah,
to pull people onto his side and convince them of a relationship and
mhm,
all these tactics that he's employed so far, he now can do with the understanding that, okay, she's no longer going to be here, and I know when she has to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So he had we're like end of May, June now. And he has escalated to so my dad's paralyzed from the chest down, like random act of violence. And he was shot when he was 18, and so he's paralyzed from the chest down. And I remember
Gotcha.
him sending me a map of my mom's house. They lived in California, and my dad's house.
You're in
And
Vegas.
I'm in Vegas. And he was like, "Well, if you don't want to talk to me, I think I'll have to go and make a trip." And I'm like, this man has found my parents. Like, he's gonna hurt my dad. Like there's nothing my dad would be able to do. Like
Mm.
that would be it. And so he'd escalated to that point, and still the police were like, "There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do."
I just struggle with that so much.
Oh,
It's when the police tell you that I can't help you, where do you go?
what do you do? And we did not have TikTok. We did not have
Right.
you didn't have the ability to like amplify your voice in the way that we do now. And so you eat it. You eat it. And I remember I lost like job after job after job because he would do things like show up to where I was working. Um, and I remember I had one job that was like, oh, this was a little bit later. I'll get to that part. But
Okay.
um, so we're in June now. I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I moved into my new place. We're all right. And it was quiet. I hadn't changed my phone number yet all this time. So you're like, why didn't you just change your phone number? I was 21 and I was prideful and I felt like I had moved my entire life. This is the first time I had a phone number longer than like 2 years. I was like, I'm not giving up my phone
Right.
number
I'm
because
not
of this
giving
guy.
that power. This is my number.
Like, what are you talking about? And I
Right.
sold cars. So it was like your whole entire like
Yeah.
audience is like gone. And so I hadn't changed my phone number yet until I moved into my new place. And it's so funny because when you're like 21 years old, you pick an apartment
Mhm.
because, it's got like high ceilings and, oh, I like this little enclave or has a built in bookshelf. Like that's why you go and you pick an apartment. And I remember going to pick this apartment and being like, if he comes for me, like I need time. Like, cause in my
Mhm.
last apartment, when he like kind of like pushed his way in, I was on the first floor. So he was just in my house. He
Mm.
was in it.
So
And
he had already physically come
he
in
had
your
already
space.
physically pushed
Wow.
into my space. That's why he felt like entitled. And he had uh, the police came after that instance and they were like, there's nothing we could do. He had literally pushed himself into my house. And they were like, there's nothing we can do. And I had a witness and everything. They were like, there's nothing we can do. He's gone now.
That
Um,
that is just crazy at that point.
yeah,
I
he was
mean,
like, the police could have killed me.
like property damage, something.
Yeah, you called the police on me. The police could have killed me. That's why he felt entitled. I don't know if I said that. That's why he felt entitled.
He's blaming you for the risk of his incarceration or death
Yes.
because he put himself in your space and
Yes.
you reacted.
Yes.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I had picked this apartment because I was like, if he comes for me, I need time. Like he can't just be on me the way that he was in the first place. And so I picked this apartment where you open up the front door and it immediately goes up into a flight of stairs like a loft. So you open the front door, immediately goes into a flight of stairs, and then it's like the living room area, and then the bedroom is in the back. And I never slept in the bedroom because I was like, that's too far. I can't hear anything, which is terrible because you're like paying all this money to be in this apartment and you're sleeping on the couch every night. Um, and so maybe like a couple days into that, I get a text message from my previous landlord, and she's like, "Hey, just want to let you know that we ended up finding like some holes in the wall, and we're gonna have to go ahead and take it out of your security deposit. There's some damages to the apartment." And I was like, "Okay." And they were like, "Go ahead and click this link to reach the itemized receipt or the charges." Don't think anything of it. Click the link. It's an IP address grabber, and it's him pretending to be the landlord of my
Oh
apartment
shit.
building. And I was like, okay, I needed to change my phone number. Uh,
He's
I'm
trying to pinpoint you every way he can.
immediately, as soon as I moved, he was immediately on it, like, oh, we're gonna find you. It was an IP address grabber. And immediately after I realized what I had done, because there's something very horrifying feeling of like you're doing something completely innocent and then you're whiplashed into, oh no, not only is this not what you thought it was, but this is something that could put you in danger. And so I was like, okay, I have to change my phone number.
I can't imagine those moments, right? Because it's not like you're just gonna be like, oh well, let's go watch Netflix.
You can't.
Like, what do you
You can't.
what do you do? What are you experiencing in the? As a matter of fact, I do want you to finish your story, but I want to take a second and dive into like where you were mentally, right? You mentioned sleeping on the floor in the closet. You bought an apartment defensively, which I've never even thought about before, defensive apartment buying, right? You mentioned not being able to sleep and the stress and losing the jobs. What was happening to you mentally during all this? And what were your relationships
Yeah.
like?
So we're in June now. And if we're saying like the next stage of grief is depression, I want to say it's depression. Um, that's where I was.
Okay.
I was right there, especially after I got that message. Because I had only had like a day and a half of perceived safety, of quiet, of like, okay, it's okay. He
He
doesn't know
came
where I live.
fast.
Immediately crash because it's like, oh shit, did he get it? Did he get it from that link?
What does he know?
What does he know? And I couldn't trust anybody, so I had no friends at this time because he was so able to convince people of shit. It was insane. He had made friends with the security guard at the last apartment, like insane. So I couldn't trust anybody to not give out information. Um,
He isolated you.
yeah. Oh, I was the perfect target. I was the perfect target. I wasn't super. My dad lived in California and he's paralyzed, and I wasn't on super good terms with my mom at that point in time. So I was out there in the ether, and so by this time, it's just it's straight depression. I literally call this year the year of the jobs because I don't know how I survived because I must have had like 10, 15 jobs that year. It was insane. Um, and so now we're not leaving the house anymore. We're afraid to go outside. We're looking over our shoulder every single instance. Um, like even checking the mailbox, I would have to hype myself up to like go and check the mailbox. And I would like wait until all the kids got out of school so that there's like bustling, which is crazy. I'm like timing to check the mailbox when there's like people outside moving around. Um, so yeah, now we're in depression. And what like really launched the depression was I finally got a detective assigned to my case. And so we're in June now and I'm like, okay, all right, we're good. And I remember the detective coming in my house and I come downstairs with all of my packaging. And he says, maybe it's just a misunderstanding. I had a chance to talk with Doug. He seems like a very nice guy. And maybe there's just a misunderstanding. And I'm like, and I could hear him telling me that I'm going to kill you and I'm going to get away with it. And I was like, oh shit. Like this is what is going to happen. Like, and I remember thinking like, I'm going to be like one of those Facebook memorials. I'm going to be one of those laws that they name after the fact. Like, oh, this is an important thing now. I was like, this is like they're letting this happen to me.
Mhm.
But
Real quick, while he marked this, you said his name.
oh, sorry.
No, I just wanted to make sure was that intentional to just slip because I want to make sure we
You
mark this. So
know,
if you want to pull that out, we can
no,
pull
no,
that out.
no. It's fine. It's fine. You can keep it. I spent a lot of time being afraid of his name.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Um, but yeah, he was like, yeah, I talked to him and I think uh I think maybe there's just a misunderstanding. And it was like he had developed a camaraderie with him and I was the one who was calling for help. I was the
That
one
is
who
that
was
is
calling for help.
wild.
Uh
The very people you are calling for help, even though the story already says this particular guy has the ability to, he must have some level of charisma, right? Because he is charming people.
mhm.
He's now charmed the people that you have reached out to for protection, including the detective
Mhm.
that is assigned to your case and is now talking to you, telling you he's a good guy.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Yeah. And I forgot about this, but I was recently like going over the messages that he had sent, and I found one that was like, "We need to talk." Because he could I changed my phone number, so now he's moved to social media. And so when I first started, I was 21, I had all the socials. Boom, 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 everywhere. I was everywhere. MySpace, like ooh, just like stuff that you didn't even know was socials. I was there. And he would find me uh and just like pick up conversation on those individual platforms. And so I remember him sending this message and being like, "Oh, we need to talk. A detective called me today. He seems like a nice guy. Da 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 da." Da." And I was just like, "Wow!" Like, so I knew it was true because he confirmed it. But he was taunting me with the fact that he's told me. He said the detective asked me if I wanted to press charges on you.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
What?
I had completely forgot about that, and rereading it broke my heart because it was like, damn, wow.
Okay, a question I know because I just thought it. My audience is asking: was he white or black?
The stalker?
Yeah,
Oh, he's white.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he was white.
Wow.
Oh yeah. He knew that. He played it to his favor. He told me specifically, "I'm gonna kill you and get away with it because of this.
Wow.
Because of this." And I didn't know it to be true until the detective looked me in my face and said, "Maybe there's a misunderstanding." I said, "Okay."
You think I'm misunderstanding all of
All of
this?
this. And I'm sitting in
I'm
front of
going to
him with
kill you.
pages.
That's a misunderstanding.
Pages. Like, how do you ignore all of the police reports and all of the pages that I'm showing you? And you just trump my words for
Because of
his
the
words,
conversation.
and then posit the idea to him that he should feel entitled to some form of justice. It blew my mind. And that was, so I say I was in a depression point at that point in time because uh, I feel like at that point in time, I had to consciously make the decision to no longer be a child.
Mm,
Like, I grew up very anti firearm. Uh, I had just been around like a lot of irresponsible adults and
mhm.
just seen a lot that put the bad taste in my mouth on top of my father being paralyzed. And so I was just like, no. Um, and grow up in California, it's real easy to be that way because everything is so strict. And I remember at that point being like, I need to get a gun. Like, and having to like make peace with that understanding. Like, this thing that you have, felt so strongly about, and people say things, "Oh, it's the people, not the gun." It's like, it doesn't matter, okay? Like, it doesn't matter. I felt this way about firearms, and I did not want to I didn't want to be in a position where I would have to own one, and now I was in that position where it was like, I've done all the things. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Checks, never been in trouble. I had so much faith in the system. I had so much faith in the system. It's so funny because I'm wrong often, and I say this often, but I just remember so many instances of like my personality type is INTJ. So the J is for justice. So I'm very much like, just we're gonna do it the right way. We're not gonna take shortcuts. We're gonna do this and da 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 da. And it was just like you could do everything right and still it doesn't matter, which is what I had done. And so I ended up buying my first firearm, and I knew that I wanted my firearm to be an extension of myself. So um, I started going to the gun range and taking CCW classes because,
Still carry.
yeah,
Okay.
because it was like there's there's no one else. There's nothing else. I remember losing a job because they were like, you can't carry on the premises, and I'm like, well, this man is showing up. I can't like not have this with me. Um, I ended up losing a job because I had stayed up for like 3 days straight, and I remember the first day just, like, falling asleep while I was standing up, and I needed this job bad, and the manager was like, "You could go now," and I was just like, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm not sleeping anymore or anything like that. Um, and so by now, the only way he's able to contact me is social media. So anytime he would find me on socials, I would just deactivate it. I wouldn't even answer. I wasn't responding at this time. After that police officer told me, after I moved, I no longer responded. But after he told me that I had misunderstood, I was like, oh, I'm not engaging anymore.
Yeah.
And so I would just he would find me on one platform, delete. Find me on another platform, delete. And so it started to whittle down to where I'm becoming even more and more isolated. He's finding me on like hiking apps and stuff like this. Insane.
Jesus.
Um, Towards the end of it, he had found me on like Duolingo, which is like a language learning app, and was starting to like leave me messages in there because that's the only way he could like get to me. And I remember that I received these messages on Duolingo that were like, "Hey, my birthday's coming up. You need to meet me. You need to meet me at this place at Caesar's Palace, or else I'm gonna make good on my plan." And I didn't go, of course. And he had already tried multiple ways to find me, but he couldn't. He didn't have my address at this point in time. And I'm talking insane ways. Like I would receive empty packages that would say things like "Do not forward, address correction requested," because he was hoping that the post office would just like return it and be like, "Here's the proper address." I'd be so panicked that I'd like put as soon as I'd get these empty packages, I'd like put them in water, thinking that there was, like, a tracking device on it, and I'm like, there's he's found me somehow. So he'd been trying multiple ways to find me. Um, and then I registered to vote, and registering to vote
Public.
makes your address public. And so this message that he sent me that was like, "You need to meet me," uh, he had put my address inside of there. He's like, "I know where you live. I know where you half-ass work. Um, you need to meet me and or else I'm done. I'm tired of playing with you. I'm tired of playing with this." And so I don't meet him, of course, and then I get like 2 more messages, and the one before last is like long and ranty and angry because he had like found like a Twitter post that I had had like 2, 3 years before where I said I liked this group, and he found that group coming to Vegas and like bought tickets and was like, "I bought tickets and I scoured the entire line and you weren't there, and I bought new cologne and I bought new outfits and you weren't there. So now I really have to make good on this. You made me waste my time." And the final email that I got was like, "I'm going to rape you and use your blood as lube." And so we're like near daily torment, but he's getting angrier because he has less and less ways to communicate with me. And he would say that, "I only have 3 more ways to contact you. I only have 2 more ways to contact you." Like he would know, or he would let me have something and then be like, "I just want you to know I've been knowing about this, but I wanted you to have a peaceful life," and just like wait to sprout out
Mm.
on some shit. But it was getting whittled down to nothing. I had nothing. I had no one, and talked to anybody, no socials, not leaving the house at all. And I remember after that last email, so we're in like August, and whatever stage of grief this is like acceptance. That's where I was. I was like, okay, like this is okay. This is what's going to happen. So that last message came, and then I didn't hear anything else for like 2 weeks, which is an insane amount of time because it had been near daily. And I've likened it before to having like being in the middle of the ocean and you have sharks circling around you. And you would think that you're like, "I don't want these sharks around me." But then
Right.
if they disappeared, you would be horrified because you realize that you took some level of comfort in being able to see them, and now you can't see them. And I couldn't see him. And that was the point where I was like, "Okay, he's gonna come for me. Like this is this is not a drill." Um, And so 2 weeks after that first message, I remember hearing, like, banging on my door. For a really long time, I couldn't hear, like, knocking or doorbells. Um, I remember hearing banging on my door and just ring, 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 ring. And I'm, like, standing on my balcony, and I'm, like, recording him on my iPad, and I'm, like, calling the police, and I'm like, "This
You can
fucker's
see him.
outside. Like, please, he's outside. Please come." And, he's just ring, 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 ring,
You
ring,
could
ring.
see him from your
Yeah.
balcony. Wow.
And, I'm, like I'm, like, hiding, and I see him, like, walk off, and then all of a sudden, I see him, like, just haul ass the back the way he came, and then I see a police cruiser come around the corner, and, uh they do their thing and they come and they're like, "Oh, we didn't see anything. We'll take a report."
He didn't hurt you, so
He didn't hurt you, so there's nothing we can do. And I'm like, "Oh my god. Oh my goodness." Even me showing them the video, I'm like, "Look at there's nothing we can do. He's just knocking. We don't know. We don't know anything about this." Um, and so I didn't hear anything again for like a week. And then it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I never slept anymore. I was always awake in, like, some, like, suspended state of being awake. And I remember, like, laying on the couch and not even just, like, watching the TV, just, like, absorbing it. I feel like at that point in time, I didn't have any, like, capacity. And I hear, "Boom," and and I know immediately. I'm like, "Okay, he's coming for me." And by this time, I had been so afraid that I had started sleeping with a chair lodged up against my door. And I find it so funny because I remember I had a neighbor come and check on me, the night before, and right after she left, I had put the chair back up against the door, and she had forgot her keys in the house, and I went to go take a shower. She was, like, knocking on my door, and when I opened it, she was so angry at me because she had sat outside for, like, 10 minutes, and she was like, "You're paranoid, you're letting this ruin your life, like, you're letting this person own your life, and you have to stop, like, you're being controlled by this is crazy." And I felt bad for like a half a second, but the very next night, he kicked that door in, and the chair was the only thing that stopped him from being immediately in. It was like one of those cheap apartment doors. The chair was the only thing that stopped him. He kicked the door open, and I hear him trying to dislodge the chair. And I remember grabbing my firearm off the table, and I remember pulling the slide back, and there already being around in the chamber because I had gone to the range that day. And I walked over to the top of the stairs, and I remember, like, looking down and seeing him dislodge the door, and I remember shooting twice. Boom, boom, and I'm in, like, an enclosed space, which, like, it should have deafened me. I don't remember hearing it. I just remember shooting twice, and I remember hearing him go, "Oh, fuck, Deja, you shot me," and uh, he stops dislodging the door, and he had told me multiple times already, "If you hate me so much, shoot me. If you hate me so much, shoot me. I'm gonna come and visit you tonight. If you hate me so much, shoot me." And so I think even before he processed that he had been shot, he had, like, already, like, "This is what has happened." Um, and he stopped trying to dislodge the door, and I remember putting my firearm down, and I remember picking up the phone and calling the police, and I'm like, "My name is Dasia, and I just shot my stalker." And I remember, like, just the calmest I had ever been. And it's funny because, like, I've told this story before, and people will say things like, "Oh, I would have clip," or, "No, why did you only shoot twice?" And it's like, I wasn't angry. There was no anger in me. There was no, feminine rage. There was none of that. It was just like, it's me or it's you, and I choose me. And that was hard because he had told me, he was like, "Maybe I'll just make you kill yourself."
Mm.
And there were many times where it was just like, I don't wanna keep dealing with this. I don't wanna keep dealing with this, and, like, maybe this would be easier. And, so it was like it was me or it was him. And so the police come and there's, like, no blood or anything. There's, like No, he's nowhere to be found, and I just remember sitting in a daze. They had me come outside, and they start doing, like, their CSI thing, and, I'm like, "I'm going to jail." Like, I fired a gun in an apartment building, like, I finally snapped. There's no one here, and, like, 20 minutes later, I hear, like, a scream, and I hear some dogs barking, and I hear on the radio that they've got him, and so all the other times that the police would come, he would just run and hide, and he didn't process how hurt he was, so he tried to hide, and he's, like, bleeding out under a bush, and I remember watching them, like, wheel him on a gurney into the ambulance and just being so glad that other people could see him. I'm like, "You could see him, right? Like, y'all see him, right?" Like, I remember that feeling of, like,
Mm.
washing over me of, like, other people can see him, and, they ended up finding, like, earmarks on the door. I don't know how long he had known that address and how long he would just be, like, coming to the house just to listen to see if he could hear noises inside.
So when they're fingerprinting and things, they
Yeah.
found his ear print
Yeah.
on your door.
Yeah. And, so they give, like, a lot of rights to criminals,
Whew.
and he, ended up, like, gaming the system for months after that. He was hurt pretty badly, so he had to go to the hospital for about 4 months. And so they just keep delaying your court date, delay it, delay it, delay it. And then once he got healthy enough, um, I shot him in the chest, so he ended up losing, like, a significant portion of his ribs, of his lungs. Um,
Hit him dead center.
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And the only thing that saved him was the fact that I went to the gun range that day, and I hadn't swapped out my range ammo, so it was very smooth.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I don't wanna say, like, so close because I don't, like, fantasize about, like, ending a life at all.
No,
I
but
don't
I get that because
but
your
it's just,
range ammo
like,
is different.
it's different. Um, and,
Mm.
he would do things like stop eating and starve himself so he wouldn't have to go to court and, just delay it, delay it. So he ended up getting delayed for, like, a year. And the wildest thing to me about the entire experience was watching us have to go to court so many times and him not show up. I didn't know that was possible. Like, they can make the choice not to show up to court until they, like, make them.
Right.
And, so he just kept playing this game. And so I shot him in September, and we didn't go to court until July, so he already had, like, 300 days served. And we had bounced around so much they forgot they, like, lost my victim witness paperwork. And so the way that it normally works is you go to court and they bring the defendant and they let the victim witness speak about, like, the defendant's actions and the impact, and then the defendant, says that they're sorry and all this stuff, and then they do sentencing. Well, because they forgot my paperwork, the way that it went was it was just the defendant speaking, and the picture that the lawyer painted, it like, I remember shaking listening to it. They were like,
So they tried to take your voice the whole
"Oh,
time.
yeah." They were like, "This was just a case of, um, him reacting badly. He found out that his girlfriend that he loved and was
Oh,
going to marry
wow.
and was going to marry,
Wow.
um, didn't wanna be with them and was with someone else, and he was doing drugs at the time, but it's okay because we have a drug treatment facility that we'd liked him to go into." And I'm shaking. I'm shaking. And I remember jumping up and being like, "I need to speak."
I bet that
And
whole domestic court, what do we call it?
family court.
Well, I bet
Yeah.
none of that helped at that
Oh,
point.
no. No, not at all. Um And the judge was like, "We didn't even know you were here." And they let me speak, and I, like, laid out the impact, like, everything that had happened and how, like, my worldview had changed, and I couldn't move through the world with the same, like, light that I had before and how much had been taken from me. And, I remember the hate in his face that I had had, like, a chance to to speak. And so they ended up giving him I think he took a plea deal. I think that's my one regret is I allowed them to take a plea deal because they really painted it like They were like, "Well, you're gonna have to go through everything. You're gonna have to tell everything," as if I had something to be ashamed for. I'm like that at that time, I'm like just trying to get on with my life and, I don't
Just
wanna be
tired.
I'm tired. I don't wanna be made out to seem like I'm some, like, w woman mastermind playing with the hearts and minds of men. It's like I was a kid, you know? And, so they ended up giving him a plea deal. I think they gave him, like, 6 years, and he served 4. And then
All that.
all that. Yeah, they gave him a plea deal. I think they gave him, they, like, dropped his home invasion or something and put it changed it to, like, aggravated stalking. And I'm not even kidding. A week after he got off parole, he found me again
Are you
and was
shitting
like,
me?
I think I'll pay you a visit in Tennessee."
Fuck.
And I reached out to his parole officers, and they were like, he repaid his debt to society, so there's nothing we can do." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Here we go again, is what you're thinking probably.
Yeah. And, it was just so disheartening trying to, like, go through the process of filing police reports and then having them tell me, "Well, he's in Vegas, so you need to worry about it." And it's like, damn, that's a crazy thing to tell somebody even after all of this. Like, this should elevate.
At every level, they told you, "You shouldn't be worried about this."
Yeah. And, about a year after that, he actually went to jail for stalking someone else, so I was number 2. And they gave him 15 years this time.
So, there were at least 3 of you
At
all.
least 3, there were at least 3. And so, yeah, that is that is my tale. Um, and it kinda shaped everything about my life afterwards. Afterwards, I started working in a gun range so I could teach personal protection within the home, refuse to be a victim courses, because I wanted to help women, feel empowered to not be a victim and kind of alleviate some of the fear from owning a firearm, but I wasn't mentally in a good space to deal with that. Like, I still had, like, a lot of processing to do. But it shaped me into the woman that I am now, and I kind of, like, move through the world with, like, gratitude that at any point in time, someone could, like, make a decision, and not many people get the opportunity to choose their life. We live it passively, and we just, like, go through the motions. It's different when you consciously choose and say, "I choose myself, and I choose to live actively." And I don't know if I would have done that without that happening.
Who are you now? Who are you today?
Now I'm someone who is a learner of life, and I'm wrong often, and, but I'm grounded in feeling like it's not, I don't wanna say purpose because that sounds cheesy, but I feel like I'm someone who's seen the darkness, and there's people who go through terrible things, and they could, by all justification, be monsters. They could be
Right,
monsters, and no one would blame them.
right.
No one would blame them. They say, "Oh, well, they did have this happen." And I today, I'm proud of not being a monster. I've seen the darkness, and I know who I am in in those moments, and a lot of people don't get that chance to, like, I know who I am intimately. I know who I am in those moments that, people fantasize about in movies. "Oh, if this was me, I'd do this." It's like, you don't know. You don't know
Yeah,
what you would do, but I know what I would do.
yeah,
So, I feel grounded in not being a monster, and that's who I am today.
yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how you held composure through the story. Right? I'm listening, and there were moments it was tough for me
Yeah.
because I'm hearing you and I'm envisioning your story, but at the same time, I'm thinking about myself. I'm thinking about all the people that I love and just the experience that I've had with learning that the idea of power is often a facade
Mhm.
because we don't have as much control or power as we think we do.
None.
And how scary of a feeling that
Mm.
is. And then to have to go through what you went through, following the systems, talking to the right people, documenting, and then ultimately having to make the decision that the only person who's going to be here to save me is me.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't it like
Yeah.
I feel like it should never get to that.
I don't think that it should. I think people become jaded. I think for me, it was the very, like, startling realization that everybody's just these are just people, you know?
Yeah.
The police officer that you think is going to save you, they are
Just
just
a
a person,
person. Yeah.
and you don't know what, like, biases they may have that,
Yeah.
like, it's so far outside of your control. It's everyone's just a person.
That is wild. I wanna end it here, but I have to ask one more question. I think the
Yeah.
audience would want to know this. 2 more questions.
Yeah.
Has he tried to contact you since that one time? And then when he got out, when he
Yeah.
was paroled after harassing you and before the 3rd woman? And then the other question is, have you had any contact with the other 2 women?
Um I'll answer the last one. No, I haven't had any contact with the other 2 women, which I totally get because it's very scary. Like, it's a very scary thing, and I feel like stalking is one of those I can't think of many other crimes that are committed where we go, "Well, what did you do?" And that's
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
hard. That's really hard, so I get why,
Yeah.
and there's also the fear aspect. I there was times where I felt like me living my life out loud was like taunting him. And it's
Mm.
like, you can't live that way." So since he got out and was paroled and contacted me then, um, there hasn't been any since then, but I have 0 doubt in my mind that it only stopped because he went to jail for doing it to someone else. Someone else fixated or grabbed his attention and, or was too nice or smiled a little bit too long. It's like, it's none of this stuff.
Or did absolutely
Or
nothing.
did af or existed.
Yeah.
Somebody was just existing in his space.
It's like that whole victim blaming thing is wild when you consider someone who goes through the lengths that this particular guy did, there's a problem inside of him.
It not only that, but it just, stalking is so unique because we dismiss it so much that it makes me empathize with people who with men who have stalkers because I'm like, "Dude, I was dismissed. I know people are dismissing you." And it's like, I can't think of any other crime that we do that to.
Wow. All right. After going through all that and telling that story, knowing that all the Wild Black listeners are, I'm sure, still very much tuned into this one. At the end of every episode, we always give the mic to our guest
Mm,
and allow you to tell the listening audience anything that's on your heart to share with them.
okay.
You have already shared a ton.
Okay,
So if you are exhausted,
I'll keep it
you don't
small.
have to share anything.
Uh,
But should you want to,
okay, I'll keep it
short
light.
or long,
Yeah.
because the floor is yours.
Okay. Uh, I'd say first, if you are experiencing stalking or you have been stalked, um, talk about it out loud. And I know it's so scary, but we didn't have the tools that we have now. And like your voice can be amplified in ways that it never was before. Um, and I'd say be careful of language. For a really long time, I would say things like my stalker, my stalker.
Yeah.
And that creates like a level of ownership. Someone is stalking you. This is something that's happening to you. You don't have to own that piece. Um, I'd say don't think it can't happen to you. I wish that it would never happen to anybody, but like don't please don't assume that it can't happen to you. Um, and if you're ever really sure that it can't happen to you, like please find me on socials and go and read those posts that I've made those videos for and go and read the comments and you're able to see so many different situations, my pastor at church or like, my best friend, like it's so broad. Um from like a what can you do about it? Because I hate that you tell people these terrible things and you're like, what am I supposed to do with that? We take all this stuff on and we like have people walk around with it. Voting is important. District attorneys are elected, judges are elected. Uh, a huge part of the reason why my stalker was able to get out is because they keep sending him to like this fire camp and not taking in the entire gravity of the situation. But these judges are elected and you're able to go and see like how hard or soft are you on certain types of crimes. Same thing with your district attorneys. And you have people who are going unchallenged in these elections because no one's paying attention. So if you have people who are not taking care of you, people don't start paying attention until it affects their money. Like, so I would challenge you to know what's going on with your local elections, your judges, your district attorneys, and make sure that the people who are being put in office are going to advocate for your needs or are not going to be dismissive. Um, and I'd say, like, choose your life, man. Like, choose yourself fully and yeah, show up for your life.
Last thing, completely optional. You do not have to if you don't want to. Do you want to share socials, how they can engage with you, follow you? Okay.
Yes. So all of my socials are Dasia Does It. That's DASIADOESIT. I spent a lot of time teaching people how to roller skate, but my entire community is built on taking better care of yourself, paying attention. Um, so yeah, come and hang out. It's a very chill, supportive community. I feel so grateful to say that, like, my little corner of the internet is so it's not it's not toxically positive, but it is very, very supportive and, like, open, and I can't find too many places like that on the internet, so
That's the truth.
come and hang out. Come and hang out with us or learn how to roller skate.
Deja, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Hopefully the audience was able to stay with us and hear all that and then understand like all someone has to do is decide that that is what they want to do to you
Mm,
and it is done.
yeah.
With that, Wild Black, peace. We out. We love you.